Hi, I'm Jason Grover for ThatShelf.com, and we're here to talk about Hadestown.
Big shelf.
So, Broadway. What's really nice about Toronto is that we get some of the mega productions coming through, either originating here as one of the quote-unquote off-Broadway sort of feeder series, or some of the major touring productions. I mean, a lot of people are very cynical sometimes about what the Mirvish family has accomplished in the city. I think we're blessed to have people who truly love theater in all of its forms that have been able to sort of parlay that. Obviously, Ed Mirvish, starting with Honest Ed's, took the schmutta business essentially. Well, I mean, a discount store, parlayed that into many, many millions of dollars, and took his love of theatrical presentations and brought some of the biggest musicals here, built Princess Wales Theatre, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Son taking over that, and the Mirvish family continuing their sort of run. Again, I think a lot of people can be very cynical about that, but I think that the result is that we have this incredible repository of live productions in many venues in the city that continues this very day. The Royal Alex is one of the first places I ever saw. So I think it's a Les Mis would have been probably the first thing that I saw there. And it's now, there's new seats. It's obviously a TIFF venue now. So it's always a pleasure to actually go back there and sort of re-experience a show and find something else to fall in love with. And Hadestown is definitely one of those. I knew about the show. It came out just before COVID. I had a bunch of friends that were really quite obsessed with it. But in fairness, they're obsessed with a lot of shows. But I thought that this one would actually speak with me. I am a fan of taking sort of older myths and recontextualizing it. I have a Jesus Christ Superstar thing, as many of my viewers on this channel will recognize. Of taking a story, messing with the story, and then questioning about why you're even telling the story. And it's that aspect. It's the sort of, we know where it's going, but why is it that this story continues to resonate, which is sort of fundamental to the telling of this particular tale, which I actually found really extraordinary. I'd heard the opening track. I'd heard the Under the Shields thing from the original soundtrack, but I had purposely avoided listening to the rest of the score. It's one of those things. I mean, there's a couple shows that I'll just gorge on before I've ever seen it, because the odds of me seeing it are relatively minimal. There's others I've held off on. Book of Mormon is actually probably the biggest one that I've just never listened to, because I'm hoping one day to bloody see the thing already. But I'd heard the trombone intro, all the elements, the collision between New Orleans and folk, the telling, the gospel, choir, all that sort of mashup of Americana and New Orleans stuff, which is 100% up my alley, plus the Greek myths that it is speaking to. So I obviously, day after saw the show when it did it, but this is the show that we saw. Here's a little program of Hadestown, the Royal Alex program. And if you actually break it down, it's pretty it's a pretty extraordinary production. The show itself is visually quite stunning. I thought the direction was excellent. Sure, on a touring show, you're not necessarily going to get the sort of A++ level of performances, but sometimes I find actually touring productions actually have sometimes superior voices or performance to actually, what was that, play. According to my program, the cast, we have Hannah Whitley playing Eurydice. Orpheus is played by J. Antonio Rodriguez. We have Maria Cristina Oliveras, excuse me, as Persephone. Hades, Matthew Patrick Quinn, stunning. Nathan Lee Graham as Hermes. He is, I knew him from somewhere, and I didn't realize it was from Zoolander, but he's stepping into really, he has quite the shoes to fill, as it were, from Under the Shields. It's a very celebrated performance. And then, obviously, the Fates and the Workers' Chorus. The orchestra is on stage, and I got to give a shout out. Eric Hang's the MD and the piano player, and it's so clear just looking at the guy, like just even the way that he's playing, that he's extremely classically trained, and yet it's always funny when shows like this, when it's really got a swing, it's like that that sort of in between. It's not a crazy piano part. It's not like, my Jason Robert Brown shows, where you basically have this monster piano stuff, but it's got to be tight when it's got to be tight, and it's got to swing when it's got to swing. And I thought he did a really good job. Emily Fredrickson has a trombone role. That's one of the most sort of iconic parts of this show. It starts with the bass line basically being on trombone. She's great. She's incredibly charismatic and clearly a really, really strong player. It's interesting how she actually did the opening, because sonically, you're doing a lot of blats, and she was not actually using a full mute. She was actually just doing hand mute, and I'm not sure that totally worked in terms of the sound mix in the city, in Toronto, based on how the Royal Alex acoustics works. It almost wasn't distorted enough when it was meant to be distorted. It was almost too clean a tone, but super minor. She's a hell of a player. Clearly a monster. But I want to give a shout out. I believe this is her. If this credit is correct, it's credited to Michigo Egger on guitar. I don't know if that's her name, if that's the right person. I have no idea. But it's this woman on stage who is just chugging away on the guitar, and she was great. And it's so... it's one of those things. I'm the guy that usually likes sitting front row so I can watch the pit, and so I always like when the pit's on the stages were, except the drummer. The drummer had to be underneath. It was unfortunate because who is playing drums? Yeah, Eladio Rojas. Great. Everybody's great. The band's obviously amazing, but specifically the guitarist, it's a weird. It's an acoustic guitar, and then it's a prepared guitar. So there's parts where they actually stick metal into between the frets, and it's a little bit flamenco at times. It's a little bit sort of rollicking, sometimes just chugging away at chords. And she seemed to be just enjoying the hell out of herself. And there's something about that, is even with all the stuff going on stage, being able to sort of focus a musician and just see, at this stage, earlier in the production, just a sort of sense of musical joy being from the musicians is, for me. I mean, fundamentally, when it comes to musicals, especially sing-through musicals with like this, I see it as a concept concert. With really good production values. Honestly, if you look at the difference between, I guess Beyonce played yesterday and you see footage of her on a horse, that's obviously highly theatrical. And so much of it is pre-planned and sung to click and sung to tracks and stuff like that. In a funny way, in musical theater, you get a little bit more of a true organic concert in a way that most modern concerts do. And that's one of the things that sort of... I find kind of interesting about modern musical theater. The numbers are great. The story's great. It's obviously very heavily weighted in Act 1. Act 2 sort of swings it away. There's certain things, I know, as explained to me by the experts, that Broadway could do, especially in terms of certain moments of dissension that we're not able to do at the Royal Alex. But nonetheless, it is just this wonderfully electric, powerful story that's thousands of years old, re-put into question not only the nature of love, the dynamic, and how you work through your fates, but also how the inevitable tragic conclusion that we're there, that we spend the entire time wanting it to be a different ending. Then why do you tell a story like this? Why do you bother being reminded again and again, like another myth, the Sisyphean task? Why do you keep climbing the mountain? Why do you keep thinking that somehow there's a chance to succeed? Why do you think that somehow music's going to be the answer? Because you do. Because that is life. Life is knowing that the ending is going to be tragic, and yet we live each day hoping otherwise, and we hopefully fill each day with a little bit of love and a little bit of music. And that's something that the show does, absolutely. The recording itself on vinyl is quite good. The pressing's pretty decent. I didn't get the silly Barnes & Noble one. Comes with the full libretto, which is all good. And I went ahead and ordered the concept album, which has been really challenging to actually procure. But managed to get it actually on Anaïs Mitchell's website. So those of you that might be interested in it, it's hundreds of dollars in Discogs, but you can actually get it for 30 something bucks on her website. And we had the pleasure of actually, she showed up to sing the closing number, We Raise Our Cups, with the ensemble. So the singer-songwriter, it's folky, she had like Bon Iver on the concert album, all this stuff. Over a decade of going from these workshops in Vermont and then working away and up to Broadway and sweeping the Tonys, and then COVID hit and sort of deflated some of the momentum for the show. And it's just now with in the quote-unquote post-COVID actuality, post-lockdown anyway, that the show is getting its tour, and it's getting its ability for places like Chicago, Toronto, to be able to embrace the show. So if you have a chance in Toronto, definitely go see Hadestown. Definitely listen, for me, again. Let the show be the first time you hear the soundtrack if you can. Otherwise, if you just don't have the opportunity, I really recommend that you actually dive into this. I truly think this is one of the great musicals of the age. Not that I'm familiar with every single one of them, but it just feels that it's connecting in a way which is extremely, extremely powerful. The performances are great, incredibly wide-ranging, diverse cast in all the means the word diversity. And it's something to truly celebrate, and I could not be happier that I had a chance to see it. So, just a little glimpse of what we saw.
Please welcome the incredibly gifted singer-songwriter and Tony and Grammy Award-winning creator of Hadestown.
I'll end with a glass raising song, and just thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, follow us on social media, go to thatshelf.com and support the kind of coverage we can provide, and we will see you next video. All the best. Take care.